Thank you, Dr. Nawakamonen. Thank you for the invitation to speak. And I know that some of you speak Thai, so I can answer questions in Thai, and some of you speak English, and so we're gonna go with international language today. But during the time of my talk, if you have a question, we can go ahead and answer it. So you don't want to, Thai people sometimes is too polite to ask questions, so we can give them a little note so people can ask questions during the time of my talk. So I switched the topic a little bit because I know that some people can only come here today and some people will come here tomorrow. So I make a little bit of overlapping of the lectures so that people who come today won't miss things that could be tomorrow. You're going to miss a little bit, but not much. But people who come tomorrow will not miss as much today. So as you can see here, we're going to talk about implant guided surgery mainly today. And I just want to point out a few things. So we have an intraoral scanning that we use, and you can see that I print out the Buddha image on the top left side. And I actually run, we're not going to have time to talk about today, but I actually teach the dental student at Virginia Commonwealth University do 3D printing. And we have a little competition in the class, and the one that won the competition got to print whatever he want or he or she want. And one of the guys wanted to print Millennium Falcon, so we print out Millennium Falcon on the left side of the screen. So there's no direct compensation for this presentation. However, I have to declare that I'm a lecturer for Zimmer Biomed Institute, and Zimmer Biomed is support my work to research and educational grant, form labs, and TreeShape support the material for this presentation, but they did not provide any monetary support for this compensation. And this presentation are not endorsed by Virginia Commonwealth Dental School, and the topic that we present today not necessarily represent the position of the school. Just a little bit about myself. So I went to school at Chulalongkorn University just down the road from here. And I put the map of the world up because a lot of people doesn't really know where Thailand is. So we have to point out that Thailand is almost directly opposite the United States on the other side. And for us, I just point out, if you tell, I went to school at Chulalongkorn University. I stayed 2 years as a faculty, and then I went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, or known as UNC. I did grad pros, PhD, postdoc, and I taught there for 11 years in the prosthodontic department, in the pharmacology department. And if you don't know where North Carolina is, so this is the map of the United States right here, and you can see Florida right here, New York is up here, Washington DC actually right here. So this is Virginia, this is North Carolina. So I spent most of my adult life there. And then I just recently moved to Virginia. Virginia is directly up north of North Carolina. And if you look at the map, North Carolina look like this, and Virginia look like a flip side. North Carolina. The microphone is kind of funky. And where I live now is actually in Richmond, which is right somewhere here. I moved up north 2 hours and 45 minutes from Chapel Hill, and I run the digital dentistry program. Let's see here. So just for you guys, because nobody probably heard about Richmond, Virginia. So this one? Let's try this one. This is better. So Richmond actually an important city in United States actually, because it's the place Virginia, our most founding father, came from. So you can see that it's George Washington on the horse right there, and that is Virginia. Richmond also a state capital of Virginia. It have this Capitol building right there. They were actually designed by Thomas Jefferson, which is the 3rd president of United States. And this is just about 10-minute walk from the dental school. This is a statue of Thomas Jefferson right in front of George Washington on the horse. And the other side of the, right next to this is the statue of what we call Stonewall Jackson. So if you remember the Civil War, so United States have a little Civil War, and this is the one of the leader of the Civil War army called Stonewall Jackson. And his name is Stonewall Jackson because he was really fearless, and when he fight, it looked like a stone wall. So they cannot defeat him, and unfortunately, he got shot by his own soldier, and he died of infection from the wound, so that's part of why the South lost the war. So the other thing that's interesting in Richmond is one of the only city in the United States that have a rapid river go in through the city. So people would do this rapid water rafting right in the middle of the city. Oh, have to plug in, sorry. So there's a big river that actually go through the city. Let's see, I'm trying to show. It's called the James River. Here we go. So it's called the James River, and you can do a water rafting through the river. Now let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So I try to kind of combine today and tomorrow and make sure that if you miss tomorrow, you don't miss as much. And people who come tomorrow would have part of it today talk. We're going to talk about 3D printing, and I know that we start doing 3D printing probably a lot in the past 2 years. And we need to know what 3D printing is, not just to use the materials and using the machines. So we will talk a little bit about what 3D printing is and what kind of technology you use. And we will go into the how to apply this into the computer aid implant planning and guided surgery. And we go to cases, and I will show you what research that I have been doing with folk in Virginia Commonwealth University, and of course we will have time to answer questions this afternoon. So there are 3 types of manufacturing. And at the highest level, production of 3D part can be sorted into 3 major categories. Number 1 is forming, like you have a mold and you can inject to it. It's called injection molding, for example. It's called a forming or injection molding. The second one is the subtractive. Subtractive meaning like you do a milling. It's mainly we use a lot for CAD/CAM ground, so we mill things out. So that's called subtraction. The one that we're going to talk about today a lot is called additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing. So what is additive manufacturing? The additive manufacturing is the process of joining or adding material with the primary objective to make objects from 3-dimensional model data using a layer-by-layer principle. The layer manufacturer technology are known among both engineering and scientific community as a rapid manufacturing or rapid prototyping. For us, we usually call it 3D printing. So basically, you take a tiny molecules or tiny piece of material and you add them all together and build a 3-dimensional structure from it. And I want you to show you these, hopefully this one work. This is why I have to use, there we go.
Additive manufacturing is 3D printing. Instead of molding a part or machining it, additive manufacturing involves technology that fuses the material, maybe using a laser in the case of metal, in order to build up the part one minute layer at a time. Because the part is built up instead of being machined from the outside or molded, additive manufacturing makes it possible to produce forms that maybe wouldn't be possible to make in any other way. Possibilities include parts that have complex internal channels, parts with lattice or honeycomb structures on the inside for weight savings. Additive manufacturing makes it possible to customize a part, changing the details at the last minute because there's no dedicated mold tooling. Also, additive manufacturing can eliminate a lot of assembly work because a part that might be assembled from a lot of smaller components could be grown as a single piece instead. Additive manufacturing makes a variety of end-use production parts, including jet engine components, other aircraft parts, medical devices, surgical implants. Additive is also used to make mold components that actually improve the molding process because the cooling channels, instead of being straight drilled holes, can be grown to conform to the shape of the mold surface. Additive manufacturing as a production option is still in its infancy. The number of users and applications is growing, but still small. Over time, additive manufacturing machines will become faster, their build envelopes will get bigger, the processing of various materials will be better understood. But the thing that'll really help additive manufacturing advance is designers becoming more aware of the freedoms and possibilities that additive manufacturing brings them. The established rules of what forms are manufacturable have, in a lot of ways, now changed. When people compare additive manufacturing and machining, what they forget is how capable modern machine tools are. A part that is machined effectively today probably will still be machined tomorrow. Additive manufacturing will replace machining for some parts, but the better way to think about additive is as a complementary process. One, because in metal, a part produced additively probably is still going to need finish machining. But also, two, because what additive really does is expand the range of designs that manufacturing is capable of producing. Additive manufacturing will be part of the future. How large a share of production additive manufacturing will account for is unknown. How quickly it will advance is unknown. But we will see additive manufacturing take its place as an established, accepted production option alongside molding, machining, and other processes. In the future, additive manufacturing will account for some significant share of the way that parts are made.
So I'm just showing you this, and this is not specific for dentistry. Right, so this video is actually not specific for, let me see if I can go back. So the reason I showed that video is because dentistry is now starting to use additive manufacturing. We're using other things for a long time. We use the millings, which is the part of the machinery. The dental implants are all machined. Now we can print things. We can print dentures, we can print implants, we can print the graft materials, just to give you a little bit more information about how printing and how printing is evolved. Now, there's a good review on history of additive manufacturing, and we're going to talk about how we get here today. And it's divided into three different eras. The prehistory, basically before computer. This is not like prehistoric human, but just prehistory before we use computer. The precursor, meaning before we got advanced to digital world today, and what the processes that we use today. Now, before we have computer, we can synthesize additive manufacturing. We can use what we call photo sculpting, topography, and material deposition, which is a three different approach that basically you add material in three different ways, and we can talk about it how you do this. And basically these approaches rely on manual labor to form a layer of subcomponents that were assembled by hand. Computer technology has not yet been invented. And the first one is photo sculpting. So in 1860 in Paris, Francis Wilhelm was probably the first one who started to take picture in different segments. So the camera would rotate to the person, and then he used the picture to incorporate into the three-dimensional model of the person. So that probably would be the first, one of the first one. The other technique that's been used for a long time called topography. The topography, basically, if you have three-dimensional object that go like this, you do the cut of it and you assemble it into the 3 dimension, which is very similar to the computer doing now, but this is using manual labor to do it. The material deposition, we actually still use these. So basically what this technique uses is basically to make 3-dimensional part, you put a tiny little pieces of metal, usually metal, and solder it together or weld it together. And that's called the material deposition. Now the precursor to the additive manufacturing all of these have the feature of that additive material today, but until the computer start to advance, we can't really do much. I'm going to skip this one. So this is just mill welding. So until the early 80s, none of these computer manufacturing or CAD/CAM has occurred. And at the time, there's several groups that started doing. One group in Paris, one group in Japan, and one group in United States, and roughly about the same time. What happened is the Japanese discovered it first, and the company kind of failed to launch the product. The Paris people do the same thing, and they fail to file a patent. And not until, when we could talk a little bit later, that not until the guy named Chuck Hall, which in 1984, the same year that Apple launched the first Apple computer, Chuck Hall actually from Maryland, but his company, he formed a company called 3D System. Everybody probably knows 3D System now because they sell printer for everybody. He actually invented the technology that we know today called stereolithography, or SLA. And just to give you a timeline in digital dentistry, the year I was born, this is 1971, Dr. Duro actually started to have a vision on the CAD/CAM system. The vision of CAD/CAM system had developed in 1971, so people already think about, hey, we can scan the teeth and mill it out. 1984, the SLA patent have filed by Chuck Hall, and he formed a company in South Carolina. And it's the same year that Apple released their first Macintosh computer. And the CEREC is started in 1985, but 1985 CEREC is more like you cutting the key. You know, you still have a little block that you cut it, you put it in, it doesn't really fit well, and you have to carve the occlusal surface after you cement it in the patient mouth. So it's not that great. Procera come a year after, and you remember the first Procera crowd that I cemented, you can rotate the crowd 360 degrees because it doesn't really fit very well. After that, in the early 1990, in 1983, Simplant started to develop. They launched the first Simplant. Everybody knows is the oldest software to do implant treatment planning. So back then it looked like a panoramic kind of wheel, and you can put the implant in there, manipulate a little bit. You cannot do much to it. And then in 1998, you start to have a CBCT. I was in residency from 1996 to 1999, and I was lucky enough at University of North Carolina is actually one of the first radiology program in the country. And at the time, radiology is not specialty. And because of the introduction of cone beam CT, the oral radiologists become their real specialty, and they actually make a lot of money from just reading cone beam CT. In the year 2000, 3Shape company was founded. And as you know now, 3Shape actually hold the most control of the laboratory software. So all the laboratory software, not all, but most of it are used by 3Shape. In 2002, it was recorded the first cone beam CT template for guided surgery. So guided implant surgery was introduced in 2002. And then fast forward, back then, actually 7 or 8 years ago, I came here and lectures on guided surgery, and people look at me like I'm crazy. You know, like, Nobody heard of this thing. Nobody used it. So expensive. You have to take cone beam CT. You have to send it out to somewhere in the world, and they send back the surgical guy. It takes forever. It costs enormous course. In 2011, there are 4 kids from MIT undergrad. They are undergrad college kids, 4 of them. They form a company called Formlab. And the significance of Formlab is not because of, they're kid at MIT, but what the idea for them was that they want to make a very precise 3D printer and make it at low cost. So they introduced their first printer, but we don't use it in dentistry until about 2015. And actually, about the same time in 2015, I was considered moving out of Chapel Hill because, my boss at the time were not nice to me and other faculty, so I was about to leave, and I was have to take the board because in North Carolina, the faculty automatically get the faculty license, doesn't need to take the board, but in Virginia, you have to take the national board, 2-part national board, and then you take the licensing exam. So you have to treat. I failed a couple of times, I made it later. But one of the board exam I have to take was in Greenville, North Carolina, when my student, his name is Daniel Whitley, and you probably see his paper on 3D printing. I was napping after my first part of the board and napping for the second part, and there are these SL people with a big box coming. And I wait until Daniel came back at 6 p.m. and like, what is in this big box? Are you buying 3D printer? And he's like, it ended up that Daniel was the Formlab Form 2 printer that we're selling now. He's one of the beta tester. And Daniel smiled, open the box and take the printer out, and he started printing literally the first surgical guide that print in-house in the world. So he printed one out, and I was like, you know what? We have to call the company. So we called the company, and I will show you the first case of guided surgery that we print the surgical guide in-house in the world. We did it in North Carolina. So in 2014, 3Shape came up with the Implant Studio, which is, I don't get paid for 3Shape, but the different thing before 3Shape introduced their software is all of the software are based on surgical procedures. So you're going to plan your implant based on the cone beam CT. You have an option of putting your scan cast or digital wax up on top of those, including Simplan, including all other software. What 3Shape does is because 3Shape is a lab company, so they focus on the lab component first. So you cannot plan implant. You have to do a diagnostic wax up, put in articulator, and then you do implant. This is the right way to do it because implant surgery is a prosthetic-driven procedures. So 3Shape introduced the Implant Studio, and then we actually, after we called the implant, called Formlab, at the time we couldn't use the printer because there's no resin that biocompatible. In United States, you have to use the resin that FDA approved that be biocompatible to use during the surgical procedures. So what Daniel had to do was we actually ordered the resin from Germany. It's a EU certified, not FDA certified. We called the company, and the company was actually released the Dental SG resin. We're going to talk a lot about it today, and we actually become part of the first tester for the materials. And just to put in perspective, 2017, we have the wireless trios, and 3Shape and Formlab have integrated interface that actually help them develop. Now, just switch back a little bit to do the beginning of 3D printing, and this is sort of kind of sad story a little bit because this is the Japanese group who actually come up with the same idea, similar idea to the SLA, but because of he failed to file patents, so he didn't actually get a credit for creating 3D printing. This is the first SLA or stereolithography machine by Chuck Hall of 3D System in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. You can see a pretty primitive computer and everything, but the company basically exploded, and even though we don't use 3D printing until recently, but Boeing, the automobile manufacturer, have been using 3D printing for a long time. Now, 3D Systems is the first modern additive manufacturing company that was introduced a commercial machine. So they start to sell the SLA, they call it the SLA-1 machine in 1987. And of course, the company was founded with Chuck Hall and Raymond Freed in 1986, and the headquarters is in Rock Hill, South Carolina, not very far from my Chapel Hill house. And they actually introduced the STL file, which is STL have two names that they actually name it STL first, and then people put it opposite. People didn't make acronym, they make acronym first, and people actually use these two at the explanation of acronym. It could be standard triangle language or standard Asian language format, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Whatever you're going to print, you're going to need to put into the STL file. Otherwise, your printer would not recognize it. So the STL basically more widely recognized as the starting of the 3D printing technology. Just to talk a little bit about STL. So STL is basically the printer or the software will recognize things in the triangle. So you can see those little triangle here. These all triangle that make all these. And these are all Wikipedia if you want to look at it. So basically these triangles form a three-dimensional structures as a unit, and it obey the right-hand rule is go this way, and it create the three-dimensional structures. Without the STL file, you won't be able to print anything. Now, the STL is the file, the SLA is the technique. So they are a form of, SLA is a form of 3D printing technology that utilize layer by layer photopolymerization to form a polymer that make up a three-dimensional structures. So what you need is a liquid polymer, you need a laser to cure it, and you need a platform to move it up. So basically you have a platform, a liquid, a laser that cure thing in layer. And these are just the model of one of the printer, which is the model of the Form Labs Form 2 printer. So basically you have this tray that have polymer liquid on it. Underneath the tray is a translucent sheet, basically a gel. And you have a mirror, and the laser source here, and shoot to the mirror and shoot up to here. And the material will be cured layer by layer, and the platform slowly move up. And the only reason why the platform stay up is because when you cure the first layer, it formed the vacuum, and it stay up with the platform. Now this is just a real life picture of the Form Lab Form 2 printer, and these are very inexpensive printer. We can talk about the course later, but everybody can probably afford the printer. So we talked about this already. So now there are other files beside the STL file that you can print. It's called the CAD file. However, the STL file is still considered the gold standard or universal that always accepted. Some software is make it connected to the different printer, and you can use their CAD software specific to the printer, but in general, you're gonna have to change it to STL file before you print it. Just think about it like a JPEG of the 3D image. Now, so when the 3D printing start, it have divided into specific area. One is for commercial large-scale production, like all the stuff with automobile part, your shoes, your furnitures, all those are commercial large-scale production. And the personal use is small-scale production, which is like what we do. Now, if you look at the timeline, we're starting when the STL STL1 machine introduced in 1987, nobody actually used except the big manufacturer company until roughly about 2012, 13, 14. And this is when you start going to United States, all the library would have 3D printer. You see 3D printer in Barnes & Noble, bookstore, and it probably, if you have 2015, it probably go up even higher. So if you want to print something, so you're going to need, first you're going to need a CAD software. The software that's going to change your intraoral scanner or your DICOM. DICOM is a digital imaging and communication in medicine are the data from your cone beam CT scan. And you have to convert either the 3D model that doesn't have STL format into the STL format to be print. And then you're going to have to orient it because let's say I'm going to print a dentures. I'm not going to want my teeth and my integral surface to be close to the platform because you're going to mess up the detail of it. So you have to orient it such a way that you can produce, and the model going to build layer by layer using additive manufacturing of your choice. And then after that, you're going to have to do finish and post-processing error. Not like you print something you're going to get magically and you don't have to do anything after. You're going to have to do some kind of post-processing process. Now just to segue a little bit, because I think the two most advanced things that happen in dentistry right now is number one is the digital dentistry, the other one is the advance in imaging. And this is also in medicine. So in CT scan, when you scan the patient, your data going to be in layer. Even though you scan the patient all around, the data is not three-dimensional. Your data going to be DICOM file. When you do CT scan, you're going to have about maybe 500 to 1,000 files of layer. And from that, you're going to have to convert that into the 3D to be able to print. This just to show you the DICOM data must be converted to .stl file or .obj, which is one of the CAD file. And then you want to select the region of interest. Of course, you can print everything, but you don't need to. You have to select part that you want to print, and then you print it in the STL format. And remember, the STL format is look at the triangle. So you can choose how small or how big your triangle is. The larger the triangle is, the more rough your printing going to be. So this one is rougher than that one because the one on that side have a smaller triangle. And there's a study, actually, if you look at the study in the 3D Analysis Journal of Prosthodontic Research here, showing that you can see the die. That is the metal die that you use to scan. And it depends on how big or how small your triangle is, you can make a die very smooth or die very rough. Let's see if we can play some of these videos. So at my dental school, at the Virginia Commonwealth University, we actually have 3 intraoral scans. Actually, we have 20 intraoral scans. The 3 main types that we use, we use iTero a lot for Invisalign, and ortho department use a lot of iTero, and we can talk about the advantages and disadvantages. The trios we use a lot in fixed pros and implant. We use a lot of trios, and the PlanMecca Emerald is really great for one-day dentistry. So like CAD/CAM crowns and inlay, onlay, and veneer. So I'm just going to show you just a tiny bit of video for each one so you can see the difference. So I don't think it has sound, but one of the best thing about iTero is because you can, when you scan, most of the, turn this one down just a little. Most of the intro, these 3 scanners are almost equivalent in precision accuracy. The issue would be that if you scan full art, for example, and you get the bridge or the crown back, like the bridge crown doesn't fit. The reason why the bridge and crown doesn't fit is not because of the intraoral scanning doesn't work. It's because of how you make the cast. Because the 3D printing actually having catch up to the intraoral scan. So the iTero actually have advantage. I don't know about here, but in the United States, you can send out to get a mill cast. So they send out to Mexico, and you get back. Actually, you can scan it, and in a couple days they will send you back a mill cast. So the mill cast is probably the most precise cast you can ever have. It's actually more precise than your stone cast. So that is the iTero. And the other advantage is iTero, if you use Trios, you cannot send to Invisalign. So Invisalign won't accept the Trio scan because they have small support. That is the iTero. Let me stop this one, and then we go to the next one is the Trios. The Trios is actually one of the fastest. Between the Trios and the Emerald, I don't know which one is faster. I mean, depending on whoever have in your hand. Some people think the Trios faster. Some people think the Planmeca Emerald is faster. It's actually a great scanner. We use it a lot for surgical guide. The good thing about 3Shape scanner is seamlessly, so when I scan with 3Shape, it doesn't come out as an STL format, it's come out as a CAD, which is a 3Shape file, and it will talk to all of the 3Shape program without you need to convert it. So if you have a 3Shape software, you're going to need a 3Shape scanner, because otherwise you're going to have to manipulate your file to go. So it's really easy. You can scan it and you can send, let's see if I have a scanner right now, I can scan your mouth and I send it everywhere in the world that have 3Shape software. Anybody can make a crown for you, anybody can make a bridge for you, anybody can make a abutment or a surgical guide. So that's the advantage of 3Shape, and it's really, really good scanner. The last one is the Planmeca Emerald. Planmeca, actually E4D Planmeca actually have a cheaper version of the scanner. It's kind of similar to CEREC, if you're familiar with CEREC. So you can scan the tooth and you mill out the CEREC. The Emerald is the high end of that, and it's actually pretty fast. And it's actually integrated really well with your in-house milling software. So if you have an in-house milling machine, if you use 3Shape, then you have to put the 3Shape into the 3Shape computer, convert it, and go to design the crown. It takes a little bit longer, but if you have a Planmeca one, you can actually design and do everything on your laptop that you scan, and you send it out to mill. So it's faster for the, I think for the in-house milling process. People probably think I'm crazy. Nobody gonna be able to afford the milling machine, but I'm predicted that in the 5 or 10 years from now, everybody gonna mill thing in-house. People who own the lab gonna have to watch out on how you're gonna build up the lab, because that's gonna change the lab business. It actually already changed the lab business in the United States. Let me see. So the 3D printing basically existing for a long time, even in the 90s. We just haven't used it as much. And one of the reasons why we don't use it, because it's limited to big, large lab or manufacturer like Simplant have their own facility, Materialize, which can do printing in large volume for your surgical guide. The cost is really expensive. Actually, $50,000, you probably cannot even get any good 3D printer then. It's low reliability and it's hard to use. That's all changed. So if you look at the price in the early 2000, 1999, the price of milling machine and 3D printer is really expensive. Like $150K, $200 to $500K, and nowadays you can buy $3,000 to $4,000 for a printer. So it's no reason why it's the same cost as almost the same cost your implant surgical kit. It's not even surgical handpiece. It's like the price of surgical kit. You can buy a 3D printer. And actually, the drive is because the small, cheap 3D printer have been around for a long time. The issue was that they're not good and not good enough for dentistry. Nowadays, these cheap 3D printer, and you don't have to buy Formlab. Every company have their own cheap printer now. And I think they're going to dump it even further. So we're going to have a lot more competition, and you can get a regular crown bridge. And to me, if you do not more than 4 units, you can do model-less, or you can do a 3D printing model with have no issues. These are side-by-side comparison from a $3,500 printer, and this is about $150,000 printer, and you basically see not much different in the accuracy of the printers. The other thing that all of this printer, I'm not selling Form 2, so you don't have to buy Form 2, but all of these printers are so easy to use now. It's just one button, and it's print everything. And you have all kinds of resin that you can print the model out. You can print a surgical guide. You can print occlusal splint. You can print dentures. And you can print all of these. But actually, what we use most at the school, we print a lot of restorative model. We print a lot of ortho model for ortho aligner. We print the model for vacuum form appliance. We print probably 300-400 surgical guide last year. We also do some printing for a model for the surgeon to practice. So sometimes you have weird tumor that you want to bend the wire and cut it, or you want to teach the dental student how to place implant. We print that. We have not print a lot of this part, but we start to do some of the mouth guard, and we start to do some of the retainer, but we haven't done dentures yet. So I'm going to skip this because it looks like I'm selling things too much. This is the Virginia State Capitol, which is designed by Thomas Jefferson. And if you walk straight that way for about 10 minutes, that will be my dental school. Right there, my office. Should we take a little break? You have any question? And maybe we can take a 5 or 10 minute break. Any question? Yes, Dr. Rashapat.
No, it's okay. In terms of you said that the scanner, the auto scanner is precise, but the milling is more precise than the 3D printing because the materials of the because the shrink.
So the question, if I understand correctly, is the milling is more precise than the printing, but it's a 2 different process. So if you make a model out of the 3D printing, even you print layer by layer, you still have polymerization shrinkage. So that, and also because you print in layer like this, depending on which layer you print, you can have different shrinkage in different dimension. Versus the milling, you mill all out, there's no polymerization shrinkage, so you don't have the issue. Now, but that is for crown bridge or fixed model. If you want some certain thing you cannot mill. For example, you all have the plastic endodontics. When we went to school, we have to use natural teeth for endodontics lab, right? Nowadays, you have these endodontics plastic teeth. They're all 3D printed because you cannot mill the root canal because there's no small enough milling machine to go inside the tooth to make a root canal. Nowadays, you can actually take this cone beam CT and print out a tooth for root canal. So certain thing you cannot do with milling, but for crown and bridge model, the milling is more precise.